Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 360 Degrees Show. My name is Martina, and I'm going to be paneling a discussion here, talking about the proper waste management in Rwanda and sharing lessons with my panelists from the implementation of Waste to Resources project that we're going to be hearing about shortly. So before I introduce to you the people on my panel, let's talk about the background of the project that we're going to be talking about shortly. So Rwanda is often regarded as one of the cleanest countries in the African continent, and this is due to remarkable efforts that the country has put forward over the past decade, driven by a commitment to the environmental sustainability and cleanliness. Despite the good progress, the country is grappling with a lack of access to proper waste disposal systems and infrastructures for waste valorization. So in addition, it is also challenged with limited awareness to proper waste management, which we're going to be hearing about across value chains. So the whole point of this discussion here is to address the challenges that I have just mentioned in partnership with the Ministry of Environment, together with the Global Green Growth Institute. They implemented a project that was able to pilot the resources recovery infrastructure and the policy work for municipal solid waste and e-waste management to both the city of Kigali and the secondary cities. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my panelists here, as we're going to be talking about the proper waste management project that they implemented for a span of 3 years, which is still ongoing. So starting off on my left, I would like to introduce to you Christian Ruzindana, who is the president of the board from Green Care Limited. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. I would also like to introduce to you Juvenal Mukararinda from the Global Green Growth Institute. He is the Senior Officer for Solid Waste Management. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, and last but not least, we'd also like to introduce Theophile Dusengimana, who is a social risk management specialist from the Ministry of Environment.
Thank you, Martina.
Yes. So I would like to, before we dive into the topic of discussion, we would like to first maybe give the people who are listening to us an understanding of the project that was implemented, so that we can talk about Waste to Resources, the project, the implementation, the span of how it went down, also the sustainability process. So who would like to maybe summarize the whole project, and then let's get into the understanding of it?
I think I can introduce the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much once again for inviting us to discuss about the success of the project, but also to discuss this really timely topic on the waste management in Rwanda. So specifically with the project, Waste Resource Project, it was a co-creation between the government of Rwanda through the Ministry of Environment, Global Green Growth Institute, who sat together to lead the development of the project, and that was way back in 2021. And this was also in the flow of the MOU which was going on between the government of Grand-Duchy of Luxembourg and the government of Rwanda. Through this MOU, that's where the project started, and the project was really to see how we could really improve municipal solid waste in Rwanda, particularly focusing on the city of Kigali and also e-waste management in the secondary cities. So it was really launched way back in 2021 with the span to be implemented for 3 years. So it was really to be completed in 2024 this year in July, and again, it was really looking at the 3 components. Component 1, to introduce infrastructure to really manage the municipal solid waste here in Kigali, paying attention on the disposal site, the Nova. And then in the secondary cities, to introduce various, I would say, capacity building for district officials and, I would say, private sector to increase their knowledge when it comes to e-waste management, but also waste in general. And then the third component was around improving, I would say, the policy part of it, but also coming up with the guidelines that would really help us to mainstream municipal solid waste management and e-waste in general. So then with the span of the 3 years, we came up with various, I would say, infrastructure, as it was really part of the component of the projects. And again, we conducted various studies as part of the project. We also went ahead with building the capacity of public and the private sector, and in the end also going ahead by even taking them, these stakeholders outside the country to even see how it works outside, beyond Rwanda, and also come up with the contextualized ways of thinking and how we can tackle the challenges of waste management. In a nutshell, let me just maybe pause here and then we'll dive into the details as we speak. Thank you.
Definitely. We're definitely going to dive into the details of the project. But let me start with the Ministry of Environment. One of the panelists talked about the Nduba landfill site and how this project was mainly or in part wanted to better the waste management part of it all. How has the Waste to Resources project specifically contributed to reducing the waste at the Nduba landfill site?
Thank you very much. The project helped us to implement the existing policies, including the policy on environment and climate change, which wants to improve the environmental well-being of Rwandans. And that includes avoid the environmental pollution through waste. So the project helped us to improve the waste separation at the site. It improved the separation and the mechanical treatment through the establishment of a separation facility, which has now the capacity to handle about 100 tons of waste per day. Among the facilities include also a facility that helps us to compost the organic wastes with the capacity to process about 5 tons per day. So this reduces the amount of landfill waste and also reduces the amount of the waste that would be inappropriately thrown by, here and there in the city and in households. So that's in a nutshell what the facility helps us through the project here.
Yes, thank you very much. And over to Triple GI, you talked about the summary or mainly what the project is about, Waste to Resources project, and the goals and objectives of it, and how it has been implemented over the 3 years. But could you elaborate specifically on what the Triple GI made, the contributions Triple GI made to the waste management project in Rwanda, and how its involvement towards waste management, how it improved it in Kigali and also the secondary cities that were mentioned?
Thank you so much. I think it's a build-up for what even my colleague from MOA mentioned. So as a contribution from GGI, like I mentioned, specifically from Waste Resource Project, maybe I can start way before that. That GGI is really, I would say, a pioneer development partner when it comes to waste management. So we have been able to really support the government through various angles. I would really have to mention that way back before the project itself, we were really helping the government to develop specific policies and strategies that would really minimize greenhouse gases emissions, or that tackles climate change in general. But again, we also went ahead by conducting various studies that really informs what needs to be done by the government themselves, but also West, given the fact that it attaches through different angles, from household generators, collectors, policymakers, and the likes. So we also wanted to bring in all these studies, of which in the end inform what could be the roles and responsibility for each and every player in the sector, so that we could really find a sustainable solution around it. So with that, we also went ahead by introducing the project itself now, from the policy side, but then also gone to the implementation. And this is where the Waste to Resource project came about. And with the project itself, we've really been able to introduce various infrastructure, like I mentioned. The infrastructure included 100 tons sorting and separation facility that tackles the recyclables. And the recyclables here, when I mention recyclables, these are the non-organic materials. Well, the likes of plastics, e-waste, I would say paper and others. And then also introduced a 5 tons biowaste facility and weigh bridge. A weigh bridge is really also an important, I would say, tool or equipment that helped us to really now quantify the amount of waste we collect and transport to the dump sites. This is really an important data that will really help us to operate the disposal site as one way, but also again to help the decision makers to when the expansion should be, given the quantities that are being measured accurately. But beyond that, we also went ahead upstream. We came up with a reverse vending machine. This is a device that really helps us to contain used, or say, beverages containers, the likes of plastics as well as aluminum cans, as a drop-off point. So we've really introduced 4 reverse vending machines in 4 busy areas for us to maximize the collection of all the recyclables upstream, even in the community, so that we can maximize environmental protection. And then beyond that, in terms of, let's say, capacity building as GGI, we really, like I mentioned, we had to even take the stakeholders abroad. So we've taken the public and private sectors to Kenya to see different treatment technologies that they have, and even went ahead going into the Western world. We went to Luxembourg, the main funder of this particular project. Maybe I didn't mention the funder who is the government of RwandaTV, who also is advanced when it comes to waste management. So they had this quite view when it comes to the region, how the waste is being treated, but also in a more advanced way, what are the technologies that we can really bring in the South-South cooperation, as we think on really maximizing waste valorization, rather than really dumping what we could have as a resource, but then become a waste. So as a result, really impactful. I would say the project has really come up to really create jobs, up to 50 jobs, and more than that. And then we've been able to even calculate the emissions that are going to be resulted as a part of the project's implementation, so up to 15,000 greenhouse gases emissions, CO2 equivalent, that is going to be reduced annually. And then around 250,000 people here in the city of Kigali will have access to municipal solid waste management services. So in a nutshell, that's what I could really mention. But beyond that, in terms of capacity, in terms of community outreach, this is also an element that we've put together as part of the project. Thank you.
Very important for community outreach as well, to be able to reach to the people, raise awareness on the importance of reducing all the clustering that goes on during the dumping of waste and whatnot. So that's great to hear. And moving over to Christian, who is also representing the private sector all the way from Green Care Rwanda. Thank you once again for being here. So Juvenal also talked about creation of jobs and whatnot, but for you, how has the project contributed to green job creation, and what is Green Care Rwanda's role in this aspect?
So maybe I'll start with that last one. Basically, part of this project, we were assigned to design, build, and operate the bio-waste treatment facility, which was part of our expertise. We have been in this sector, in this business for the last 7 years. We are basically operating from Huye, and this particular project allowed us also to be able to get to city of Kigali, which actually is one of the largest market in terms of waste management. If you look at it as the business perspective. So our contribution is actually bringing in this technical aspect of it, especially being able to handle bio waste, which is the largest part of the waste stream, especially municipal solid waste.
Yes, thank you very much. Back to the Ministry of Environment, which is also one of the major partners of this project. Can you share some insights in regards to how this project was able to improve access to municipal solid waste management services in Kigali, but also the secondary sites that were mentioned during the project's implementation?
Thank you very much. The project, through different awareness campaigns and enhancing the work with the private sector, the project worked with the private actors like waste collection companies to help the services reach the rural communities. The people were sensitized with the separation at source, to separate the wastes at home, and they were provided with the woven sacks. There is a woven sack for recyclables, another for the organic wastes, so they can start having that culture of separating wastes at their household level. The vending machines he mentioned are helping the business people to put there the waste from their processes, and also reducing the waste that can be dumped illegally or inappropriately in different places around the city. So services such as separation knowledge to the household level, the vending machine helping the business people to support the waste collection at their business places, and also bringing the business people, the private actors in the services like waste collection, waste transportation, helped that the waste management services reach many people around the city, and also expanding to the secondary cities where the people benefited from the awareness campaigns on how to sustainably manage the waste from their household level. So the project is really helping the government in this area of waste management.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Juvenal. Of course, bringing about this project and bringing new aspects in terms of infrastructure and creating new ways in which the waste to resources can be able to be improved. What have been the main challenges that GI encountered while implementing the project, particularly with regard to waste valorization and e-waste management?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe before I answer that, I just wanted to add in from my colleague from MOE what he mentioned in terms of how did we improve the services, but I also want to bring in an element of the impact of what these infrastructure have actually supported so far. I would say that the biowaste facility itself is producing a compost, and the compost is going to be I would say beneficial to the communities nearby Nduva disposal site as one area, but also as to complement on the private sector engagement, the sorting and separation facility is coming up with so many recyclables, of which can really serve as raw materials for various business going on here in the city of Kigali. Now, getting back to the question, what were actually the challenges? I would say over the 3 years, it was not really a smooth path for the project itself. But I have to mention, when it comes to this valorization and the e-waste component of it, one element was that having a project which was launched in the era of COVID-19, and also followed by the Ukraine war, the likes of even the recent Houthi attack on the vessels in the Red Sea, it was not really one of the easiest projects to implement in this particular period. But just to link it with the project, we had so many equipment that we were really outsourcing outside the country. The likes of reverse vending machine, we don't produce them here in Rwanda. So we had really a challenge on the shipping issues with the shipping, given those challenges, those situations globally. But also second, in the terms of project implementation, if you know, the procurement quite often is really some of the things that delays the project implementation. But I have to mention that on the procurement process, the issue were around the capacity we have here, especially having a specific engineered company or firm that does infrastructure. It was really a challenging time for us because even during the COVID-19 itself, we couldn't find most of the qualified firms. So we had to do the retendering process. And even engaging the foreign firm, it was not easy by then. So we really had to retendering, to do the retendering when it comes to this infrastructure. I'm really specifically targeting the sorting and separation facility, which was not easy. And it's the biggest infrastructure as part of the project. But the third one was around, of course, land availability. And land availability has been also a challenge for us, given the fact that working with the city of Kigali, initially it was not easy. Again, the likes of COVID wasn't really a challenging time for us, but again, we worked through with the city and the land was given to us. The fourth one was also around having, I would say, the local, I would say, firms whom we've actually contracted to even be able to work under conditions of weather conditions, the likes of the rain season we were into. So the rain has also really impacted us when it comes to the infrastructure implementation. So there was not really, I would say, a tangible way for us to implement the infrastructure during maybe the sunny season so that we can cope as a lesson learned. So we need to really focus on a season where we would not get challenged by the rain. So in a nutshell, we mentioned the 4 challenges, but again, beyond that, with the support of the led institutions, the Ministry of Environment, the stakeholders whom we were attached also to the project, we have been able to really implement within the timeline.
Yes. Maybe before we move forward, in regards to some of these challenges, like picking equipment from outside countries, and that was an issue depending on the wars that were happening in certain countries. How will some of these issues be taken care of in the future? Because this is the first phase, this was a pilot phase, but depending on how well it has done, the sustainability of this project is in the future.
Exactly.
How do you think you'll be able to tackle those challenges that you face?
So I think I just touched based on some of the lessons. So pertinently on the shipping issues, so we need, and given the fact that these are the innovative solutions that we wanted to bring in the country, it's also a learning aspect for private sector. So we're bringing in private sector to understand how this operates and how maybe they're designed, so that in the end the production happens locally. So we want to really, when it comes to these equipment that we are shipping abroad, to let the private sector know them exactly how they function, how they are designed, so that maybe should we expand or scale, then we'll be able to really produce locally. And then we have actually, I would say more knowledgeable different fields, in the different fields when it comes to digitalization of some of the systems, the equipment production. So I believe through these learnings that we've provided to them, they'll be able to really focus on homegrown solutions, but given the lessons we've had from these particular pilots. That is on the shipping. So given weather challenging, so we are proposing, in the future we'll be proposing to have infrastructure being, I would say, implemented during the sunny season or dry season, so that the rain season cannot really hamper us to continue with the implementation. So land availability is something that needs maybe to be prepared well ahead. So working with the beneficiaries, most especially maybe the government institutions, to avail the land well beyond even the project start, to know the locations where some of the solutions are going to be sorted or implemented, so that we avoid during the implementation to have the delays. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Moving back to Green Care Rwanda, the private sector sometimes may not really be encouraged enough, or they might shy away from entering the whole waste management area. In your opinion, how can the private sector be further incentivized in investing in waste valorization and recycling in Rwanda?
That's a very good question. So basically, I feel like there are 3 main barriers we have seen from our experience as Green Care Rwanda Limited. And major ones were around inconsistencies in policies. You know, as a business, to be able to build long-term business models, you need to rely to a stable and consistent regulatory framework. So we have seen, given that waste management was a new concept for the last couple of years, regulations was not in favor of private sector to enter. For instance, back then when we started in 2016, there was no available, for instance, compost standard. So it means that every compost we were producing back then, we couldn't get high-end prices for it. For instance, if we want to work with people in cash crop who are producing for maybe export market that need to show certificates for every input they have used, we couldn't get that market because there was no clear standards for that particular. And you find that those kind of barriers has been actually preventing people to enter this market. Another thing is for waste management, it's not yet that lucrative, which also prevented to get access to investment and fundings. You find that it's very, very hard to get people to invest in this kind of project because it's still new. Even the final products coming from recycling are not that variable, and it's really very hard to mobilize funding. So you need to have a kind of specific or specialized financial instrument so that people can easily access funding. Another thing is, which is somehow tied to the regulatory framework, is also those collaboration barriers. You find that we have been operating in kind of silos, right? So we are into recycling, but we don't actively collaborate with people in transport. And going back to even waste producers who are like households. So it means that if we are into recycling and we are getting mixed waste, our raw material is actually contaminated, so we can't get anything that is variable out of it, which means there need to be platforms where different stakeholders along the value chain can collaborate so that even the end product is variable. So basically, this has been some of the challenges, and luckily the government and different non-governmental organizations are actually coming in, working on those policies, and also provide these platforms. And this, like of this project, for instance, with this project, we have been able now to be actively working with waste transporters to ensure that even the bio-waste you are receiving at the facility are of good quality, so that in the end we get variable compost that can go on the market and be competitive. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope the responsible parties are listening so that more private sector companies can be able to contribute more to waste management and feel like it's also their responsibility and believe that they too can contribute. Thank you. Over to the Ministry of Environment. How do you plan to scale the waste valorization initiatives to other cities or regions in Rwanda in regards to the view of the pilot phase and its success?
Thank you very much. This is a pilot phase you mentioned. So learning from the lessons we got from the pilot phase, from the implementation, we are envisioning to scale the initiative to the secondary cities. But first of all, we also want to increase the capacity of the Ndoba sites, enhancing the recovery of landfill gas for use in energy. We call it the waste to resource, the waste to energy. And we want also to use the biogas from there. The gas which is produced from the decomposition can be used for generation of energy. So we want to enhance that component of waste to energy and also duplicate the initiative to the secondary cities. The feasibility studies that the project helped us to develop helped us understand that we can build the facilities that can handle over 400 tons of waste per day. So we want to reach there. also to enhance our capacity to reach the goals of the circular economy action plan that we developed as a country. We heard that there are some challenges, and some of the challenges are related to regulations and the policies. So from different studies, including the feasibility studies they mentioned, we will continue to explore where the policy challenges are, where the regulatory framework are not in favor, and why not we can put in place a favorable legal framework and policy framework that can promote the waste to resource initiative, and also attract more players in the business. There is now a facility in Fonerwa that enhances the private sector investing in green investments. It's called Ireme Invest, and more information can be gotten from the website through Green Fund. And other partnerships are also in place to help different players come together. The Ministry of Environment also initiated the Circular Economy Forum together with the private sector, which is also a platform that can help both the private and the public sector partner to enhance the capacity of the country in waste management.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Juvenal, you briefly talked about the technological advancements that came with this project in terms of digitalizing some of these things. So, can you share more about the waste sorting technological advancements that you brought about, such as the reverse vending machines that we're implementing through this project? Some of these people might not really understand how they work. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. So maybe I can highlight something before maybe I get to the technology themselves. If you really look at the spectrum of waste management, the biggest challenges when it comes to Rwanda is on the treatment side of the waste. So you could see our roads are really well cleaned. The collection transportation is at the really highest level compared to other regions. But the really critical challenges really is on the treatment or valorization of these particular waste that we generate. Now, getting to the point on what was the contribution of the project, as I likely mentioned, so we've introduced various, I would say, infrastructure and equipment so that we can maximize really getting this, what is called waste as a resource, become a resource to some of the key players in the sector. So, and then talking about the reverse vending machine, this is really a very new, I would say, ways of collecting recyclables here in Rwanda particularly, but also on the continents. And this is one of the devices that is being used in Western world. I mentioned developed countries, and why bringing these kinds of innovative solutions to Rwanda was to how even Rwanda placed themselves when it comes to waste management. So particularly plastic, this is something that Rwanda has been really putting so much efforts on to really maximize their effects on the environment, but also on the public health. So reverse vending machine, how it really work, so you bring in your, let's say you have this bottle. Once you're done with drinking your water, you take it to that reverse vending machine. It has a sensor. So it locates you where to put this particular bottle. Once it's scanned it compresses it and gets to the bin. Once it's done, it gives you a reward. So a reward is in the form of, it's an incentive. So given how you could set it in the system, if this particular bottle is of, let's say, 10 francs, then you can get 10 francs using either coupons or also a voucher. So, and then in the end, it can also link you to get that money where you can go either to the nearby supermarket. This is how it works in the Western world, but for us, we are yet to introduce those kind of policies. We call them deposit return schemes, where if I am to buy this bottle of water, I'll add in a small fee. Once you return it back, then you get your fee that you've paid upfront. So, but those are the kinds of policies that we want in Rwanda that would really help us even to incentivize more people as they bring in all these kinds of recyclables. It really scans the PET or plastic specifically, PET bottles, and also aluminum cans. Going forward onto, and maybe also to highlight that the 4 RVMs that I mentioned, they are located in 4 busy locations. One is at Pele Stadium. You could understand we have a huge community around there. Another one is at Kimirongo Agachiro Market, so nearby the market where we have a lot of generations of all these types of waste. And then we have another one at Imbuga City Work, nearby the City Hall, where we have free movement of people, which in the end would really have all these kind of waste that can be able to take it to the drop-off point. The RVM is actually one of the drop-off points. And then the last one is at Inyanza Public Tax Park, of which in the end we know that more people that frequently go to the GAR, the likes of GAR or the taxi park, have mostly some of these types of plastics. In the end, we would be able also to know where to dispose them properly. And then in terms of other technologies, I would say we also want to be involved across the entire value chain, knowing that if I have waste, for example, in my home, do I have an app that I can call whoever that deals with plastic? So that app has been developed. So we call it an inventory tracking system. So this one is also it's on Apple Store. You can get it, and the one who is managing it is EnviroServe. So in case you have e-waste, particularly, you could call them via using the app, and that particular app, they'll know your locations, and then they'll be able to come and collect. So in a nutshell, I would say digitalization of our systems way from the generation until the treatment is really important for us to know and track exactly where what we call waste or the resource in this time could really get and take them and valorize them in more specific, respectively, because the recyclers we have currently, with those for PET, those for paper, then they'll be able exactly to know where they can get those raw materials.
Yes, and in your opinion, or through the study that was done, are the locals or the residents warming up to the technological advancements in terms of what the project brought for turning waste into resources, or is there more work to be done in terms of helping them adjust to these technological advancements?
I would say we are not on a bad track compared to other countries, but again we still have a long way to go. But I also commend the government's initiatives that have been put in place to even increase the digital literacy away from the top to down, the down lower tier of the government directions. And then this one is also going to help us knowing how digital advancement can help us all along when it comes even to waste management. So given the fact that we still have a long way to go, even our private service or private operators don't even use these kinds of technologies in place. So we need so much of dissemination, so much of engagement, and also awareness to even disseminate these kinds of technologies that has been put in place.
Yes, thank you very much. Over to you, Christian. In regards to more inclusion of the local community or the citizens, what strategies has Green Care Rwanda Limited employed to engage local communities in proper waste management practices?
I would say we have two different approaches. One is a direct one, especially we start by neighboring communities where we work. Most of them are actually even people who are mostly our staff. So it starts by there, like training them and helping to understand that actually waste should not seen as a burden, but as a resource if you treat it the right way. So basically engaging neighboring communities, starting from our staff and local government, cell level and village level, being involved in different community works, help us to disseminate and engage more on waste issues. Another approach is indirect one, working closely with transporters who actually are closely working with different households, showing them that actually this is a product, this is a raw material, right? So it needs to be treated as such from the source. So we have been trying to develop partnerships with these transporters for them to engage and be able to inform people from the source how to properly treat waste, especially bio-waste, which has been our main raw material as a company.
Yes, and how is that working out in terms of community outreach, engaging them, also educating them on some of the different ways in which they can properly manage the waste and so on?
So I would say that it's not an easy task because most of these stuff are related to behavior change. You can't expect overnight someone who's mixing the waste that overnight they can now start properly sorting the waste. So I'll say that it's something that's really going to be a journey rather than, and then it needs also incentives and also really outreach. So that's why we currently even thinking how can we even incentivize downstream this kind of initiative. And we're also planning to be involved more into community outreach initiatives that even target young people, because from even the experience we get from people who are a little bit more advanced, it can take a whole generation to change the mindset on how to treat waste. So that's why we are now planning to engage schools, to engage people, so that we now be more involved into getting people to understand how to treat waste and how it is important and how they should care about it, so that at least within like 5-10 years we have a new generation of people that really understand how to take care of their waste.
Thank you very much. Back to you, the representative of Ministry of Environment, Teofil, and as we draw close to the end, in regards to the 3-year implementation of the project, the extension also put into consideration, what future projects or expansions are planned to build on the progress made by the Waste to Resources initiative?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, I mentioned that through the feasibility studies, we now know that we can have the capacity to treat over 400 tons a day. That is the way to go to enhance waste to resource project, and also reduce the waste that can be inappropriately thrown away and scattered here and there around the city, and also to enhance the recovery of gas to be used as an energy source. So we also want to continue to collaborate with different partners, including WASAC and the GGGI, who is here now, and also the private sector and other partners who are interested in partnering with Rwanda in managing resources such as waste. We are referring to it as a resource. It's no longer a waste. So we also want to enhance the capacity to manage electronic and electrical waste. There is a facility in Bugesera being managed by EnviroServe, and we want to increase its capacity, because as the country is developing with the uptake of technology, there are many appliances and instruments that we use that one day will become a waste for ourselves. So we want to increase this capacity to be able to handle that kind of waste. with the existing challenges, we also want to work on the policies and the regulatory framework, and also enhance the awareness raising among the communities, so that the waste separation at source, at household level, will no longer be an issue. The behavioral change is a process. It's something that cannot be achieved in one day or 1 year. That's why throughout our programs, we'll enhance the awareness raising as a part of the strategy to make people be aware of how well they can handle waste from their household. That is, in a nutshell, where we are heading to, starting with the successes of this project, and also enhancing the capacity to achieve the goals we set for ourselves through the policies. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Over to you, Juvenal. Not moving far from the Ministry of Environment, as the project nears completion, what are some of Triple GI's plans for sustaining the momentum that was created for this initiative, and how will Triple GI's work in Rwanda influence future green growth projects in the region?
Yeah, thank you so much. As a success of the project, being it led by the Minister of Environment, our current approach is still to work with the government to see how we can really scale some of the infrastructure we put in place, but again also expand in our secondary cities or satellite cities, because that's where we're also seeing a level of urbanization increasing. This is an area that really requires, I would say, practical and critical treatment facilities, so that we could really able to go hand in hand with urbanization that is coming in our regions. But also, secondly, as GGI, intergovernmental organizations, the region, I assume it's secondary cities and also other areas of the country. But beyond Rwanda, still ways of delivery as GGI, we really help the member countries through green growth approach. And the approach itself, it really emphasizes on sustainable development through environmental and social inclusive. So environmental and social inclusive, meaning that we need to really emphasize on aspect of circularity. Circularity when it comes to waste management is really to avoid all these wastes that are supposed to go to the disposal site, but rather be seen as a resource, as my colleague mentioned, before you think as a waste, and then maximize it to the level that the remaining is the one that you can take to the disposal site. The second aspect that GGI, through the angles of green growth approach, is through sustainable urbanization. If we have proper collection, proper transportation, proper waste treatment processes, so then our cities are going to be really cope with urbanization that we have. So the third one is, of course, the impact that comes with these initiatives, job creation. So we want really to even focus still more on these solutions that really offers job creation to our local communities. And the last one is also on to the capacity building. Capacity building is like even the awareness campaign that my colleague was also mentioning. So capacity building, this is an area that we want also to put so much effort on, as we also think on the expansion, because we've realized that even our local stakeholders' capacity when it comes to waste management, which is an evolving sector, is still low. So we really need to upkeep their capacities to ensure that they really sustain the sector. And the fourth one, of course, the fifth one is really, I think I've even mentioned it, is expand in other areas of the city. Yeah, I think in a nutshell that those are the key momentum that we want to take, but also making sure even these infrastructure we put in place don't become idle. So how do we support even the government so that on day-to-day they continue to operate? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to Christian, how do you see the future of waste management evolving in Rwanda, and what role will the private sector, particularly Green Care Rwanda Limited, play in this evolution?
I feel we are now, I would say that we are now on the right trajectory. seeing where we're coming from, I see a bright future. That's the good news. So we have seen that there is a lot of collaboration, there is a lot willingness to even develop policies and regulatory framework that can incentivize people, especially business people, to come in the sector. And we strongly believe that it's the way forward. Like, this sector is going to be sustained by the private sector. And we believe that because for every industry, we believe that if it doesn't innovate, it dies, right? And we feel like the greatest innovator that can be there is business people. So for me, I feel like we are in the right trajectory because we are now being given platforms to work together as business people, but also even public sector coming in, especially to be able to regulate and also provide incentives. And I would say the next big thing, now that we have now some initiative on recycling, transportation is already in place. Now, how do we improve on every aspect of those things in the value chain? How do we improve how waste is being generated? How we improve transport? They've been talking about digitalization. We talked about behavior change on the side of waste producers. Even recycling, we know that for us, as Green Care, for instance, we are now more into recycling. We need to come up with different innovation. We need to invest heavily in R&D because actually waste is evolving. The type of waste are changing with the lifestyle of people. So the waste we were seeing in the waste stream 6 years ago has changed with the lifestyle of people. So it means we need to create new solutions to address all this ever-changing waste. And yeah, I feel like if the right platform are there and given the current momentum, if we are able to create sustainable business models that attract even investors, people are confident in, if we are creating like competitive products that can go on the market, now the waste sector will be well off, and that's where we are heading.
Yes, thank you very much. We have come to the end of the show. Maybe in 30 seconds, each of you could maybe say a few things towards to the Rwandan people in terms of waste management and how they can do better as a citizen of their country and how they can contribute to waste management. We can start off with you, Theophile.
Thank you very much. To the Rwandan communities, we want to maximize the level of recovery of resources from what we call waste, starting with the separation and at the household level, and also involving ourselves in the transport of waste.
Thank you. Juvenal?
The message is simple. Make sure that the waste you generate be responsible for sorting. So have the two ways of separating them as the current regulations. But also, if you allow, let me also thank the partners who have been part of this particular project, the Ministry of Environment, who have been really the key government institutions from its inception until today. The likes of even REMA, RURA, City of Kigali, NILDA, Gender Monitoring Office, WASAC, and the likes. They were really part of this particular project, and we believe the collaboration could really continue so that we expand and scale these good solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Christian?
So for me, the message is to the waste producers, waste is not a burden, it's a resource, so treat it accordingly. To the waste regulator, please bring all the stakeholders together. That's the government, let's work together. And then for the recyclers and business people in this, let's think, let's create innovation, let's create solutions, and let's make sure that we build a sustainable business model that attract people to invest into it.
Yes, thank you very much. And once again, I would like to thank the panelists who made it possible for us to discuss waste management and better ways to improve that in this country. I was with Christian Ruzindana, the president of the board of Green Care Rwanda Limited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and together with me was Juvenal Mukurarinda from Triple GI, Senior Officer of Solid Waste Management. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Teofil Dusengimana, who's a Social Risk Management Specialist from the Ministry of Environment.
Thank you.
Yes, and the topic at hand was waste management in Rwanda and sharing the lessons learned from the implementation of waste to resources. Once again, thank you very much for being with us here. My name is Martina Abera, and see you guys next time on the 360 Degrees Show.